put it up close to you.
Well, both of us. Is that all right? Okay, that works. Hi, Al.
Hi.
I'm sitting here with Al Cohen, and we are going, hopefully, going to have a conversation. Al is a longtime esteemed teacher and professor at OLLI, but as we all have, has had a long career before that. So we're going to, I don't know, just see what it's all about, if that's all right. So, hi, Al.
Hi.
How long have you taught at OLLI? And
This is my 13th year.
okay, fun. I've taken quite a few of your classes, and I was wondering how you got started with lifelong learning. And
Well, let me just embellish the last answer first.
Sure.
In the 13 years, I've taught about 36 courses, of which about 32 are different. So I've taught 32 different courses. I've repeated a couple. So, how did I get started? A former board member, or maybe still a board member, Jack Sukin, and I knew each other. And one day we were at a concert together. He said, "Gee, you know this classical music. Have you ever thought about teaching it?" I said, "Well, I used to do some pre-concerts in New Jersey for the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. So I would like to teach." So he says, "Well, we have this lifelong learning at the Florida State, USF.
You're at the old college, at
USF,
the old campus.
College, yeah. So why don't you put a course proposal together and see what happens?" So I put 3 course proposals together, and I presented them to the Inquisition,
Right.
the committee, and they liked one, which was called "How a Critic Listens to Classical Music." And it incorporated what I think is very important in listening, which is, I call it comparative listening. Comparative listening is you listen to 2 or 3 different versions of the same piece by different performers, and from the differences between them, you learn more about the music.
You taught a course on Goldberg's Variations, I think,
Yes.
last semester or semester before.
Yes?
And I was privileged to be in 4 of those classes, and because I love the work, and I was amazed how differently it was presented by different pianists, and
Right.
and even the different meaning of the work as it was presented. So
And that's a perfect example. I've done 2 separate classes on Goldberg. It's one of the ones I've repeated once because it is such an amazing piece of music, and the differences between really good performers is amazing, as you heard when you were there.
yes,
And you learn a lot from the piece just by hearing them. And in fact, even hearing Glenn Gould in his first version and his second version 25 years later is amazing.
it's amazingly different. Yes, and you can hear the youth and the experience.
Yes, he called his first version "Sins of My Youth."
Really.
Yes, but I find much in the first version that I still love more than anything else.
Wow. Okay. So, where did this love of classical music come from? Was this
It's an accident.
okay?
I had exposure. I used to spend my afternoons at my uncle's grocery store in downtown Brooklyn. And in the back, they always had WNEW on, Make Believe Ballroom,
Sure, of course.
popular music in New York City. And I used to like the music. And I look back now and I realize what I did was I memorized every piece when I heard it. And I didn't realize that you're a 4 or 5, 6-year-old kid. You don't think about stuff like that.
No.
I was in high school. I was privileged to go to one of the good high schools in New York City, in Brooklyn. And I was leaving an after-school activity in one of the clubs in the school. And I'm walking by the auditorium on the way out of the building, and I hear an orchestra playing, and then it stops, and a man starts yelling. So I stuck my head in the door, and there was nobody in the audience, of course. There's a bunch of musicians up front, an orchestra, and a kid I knew was in front of them with a violin. So I sat down for another 20 minutes till it was over. And then I went up to the kid and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, we're rehearsing. I'm going to give a performance of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto." I said, "This is interesting. How often are you doing this?" He said, "Well, we're going to do it every day this week." So I came back every day that week, and by the end of the week, I was hooked.
Really?
I just
So
fell in love with the piece.
So this didn't come from somebody playing the radio or classical music at home.
No,
This was just,
an accident.
well, either an accident or it always lived in you and it just blossomed.
And of course, then I started listening, and there were at the time, there were two full-time radio stations in New York City for classical music.
Yeah.
And I started listening, and of course, I had a lot of homework to do, and I found that I could hear the music and do my homework, and I could do both. And to my surprise, I would have retention of the music. So the next time I heard it, I remembered it. And so what I started doing was writing down the pieces that I heard and sort of reacting to them by giving them a rating system of how I liked them.
In your teenage years?
Yeah, a freshman in high school.
Wow. Okay. So I'm sort of leading into another question I had that you have said in class that you have a total recall of every performance you have ever seen. Is that, or fairly total, was that a correct statement?
Yes.
Okay. What's that like? Do you consider it, or even more importantly, do you consider it a gift? Or
Absolutely, it's a gift.
okay.
And it's, I can't explain it. It's just that it's not just that I remember a tune, I remember the differences between performances. And it's, it used to puzzle me, and now I just accept it. You know, it's been a long life, and I've got a lot of music stored up.
It's sort of amazing to me. I mean, it's a gift.
It's a gift.
Yeah,
No other way to describe it.
There are gifts that are given, and you know.
Now, I studied in college. One of my degrees was in classical music history, and Brooklyn College had a classical lounge and a popular music lounge. And at lunchtime, I would go to the classical lounge. Nobody was ever there. But they had a zillion recordings, and they had the score. So I would pull out a recording of something I was curious about or that I just heard, and I'd pull out the score. And listening to music and looking at the score enhances the learning experience immensely.
Just like having something to read. If you read a story or a short story or even a novel, and then you hear it or you hear somebody read it, it gets locked in. So
It locks in, exactly. So, yeah, I've retained that. That's the amazing thing. I've retained hundreds and hundreds of pieces that I think I've basically got memorized completely.
Fascinating. Question about your past career, if you don't mind. You've been a successful CEO, music critic working for New Jersey newspapers for 40 years, a philanthropist whose contributions helped children in need, and always a teacher. How did your childhood influence you?
I don't think it did. I had an unpleasant childhood.
Okay.
I was raised by a sickly mother. I was a single child. It's just my mother and me. We lived on welfare in the black slums of Brooklyn. So, and she was always sick, which frightened you-know-what out of me, because I was always worried I was going to be all alone as a kid.
Was it just you and your mom?
Just me and my mom. And
You lived on assistance, I suppose?
we were one of the first people on what was called Aid to Dependent Children, the original welfare system established in the early 30s.
Okay.
And that's how I grew up.
And did that influence your philanthropy later in life?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everything I'm giving is for the purpose of helping children.
Okay. Just children in need, I would assume.
Children in need, but also because I consider music is such an important part of my life for children learning music. So I'm leaving an endowment for scholarships for the youth orchestra of the Sarasota Orchestra, as an example. And I'm also leaving a scholarship program at Florida State University School of Music.
Terrific. You're 83, is that correct?
93.
93.
Yeah. So actually, you're jumping the gun. I'll be there on Sunday.
Okay. You're 92 and
92
and then 11/12.
Yes.
You evidently love to share your knowledge of music and educate. Are there still any surprises? Are you still learning?
Let me comment about the first one. I've said to my wife a lot. I said, I have all this stuff stored up in my brain, and it's given me such wonderful joy and such wonderful enhancement of my life. I can't stick a thumb drive in my ear and download all of this and leave it for people.
No.
The only way I can do that is by sharing it the way I do it. And that's why I love to teach.
Yeah. I think all your, in taking your classes, I've taken 5-year classes over the last 12 years, and I think all of your students appreciate that.
Thank you.
Because you have a devoted audience, but you have an audience that, if they don't know anything about classical music, can come into your class and feel welcomed and not belittled by their lack of knowledge. You accept them for who they are and try to impart whatever you can.
And I'm teaching a beginner's course right now.
Yes, I'm part of it.
Third time I'm doing this, so that's truly that case, right?
And it's fun.
So to answer your second question,
Shoot.
Which was, are you still learning? The answer is yes.
Lovely.
Yes, I still will listen, and sometimes I'll be driving and I'm listening to Sirius Symphony Hall, and it's a performance that just attracts me. Sometimes I'll just pull over and wait till it's over so I find out who it is that the performer was. So, yeah, I still have that lust for learning.
Just questions which we hadn't discussed, but does the ability to go and search it in Google rather than going to a library or something like that, is that helpful to you, or does it help feed your curiosity?
Absolutely. In fact, I use AI extensively to get background and more detail on a piece of music sometimes.
So you, rather than going the 3 or 4 steps you might have before in searching AI, you ask a question and you get an answer.
Exactly. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Yeah.
Terrific. Is there still more to do? I mean, you seem active and ready to accomplish the world again, but
I go through cycles thinking about creating courses, and I basically create courses to feed my own curiosity. I try to put them in a format that people will gain something out of.
I think we all assume that. Otherwise, you'd be teaching the same course 36 times in the course.
So, can I give you an example?
Please.
4 or 5 years ago, I'm listening to a late Schubert piano sonata that I hadn't really heard before.
A little louder.
I was listening to a Schubert late piano sonata that I may have heard it way back, but I had little feeling for it. And when I was through, I was stunned by it. And that led me on a journey. It took me 1.5 years to put a course together called Conversations with Schubert on His Deathbed.
Really?
So it's just a different way to present late Schubert music. I could have called the course Schubert's Last Year of Music, but that was just a little different. And Schubert and I started by saying I time traveled back to Vienna in 1831, and Schubert and I talked, and he gave me all the stuff on the various pieces. So, but that course took an enormous amount of time to put together.
One thing that I was thinking about is about your process, because being in your class, you don't seem to reference any notes at all. You seem to all have it in your head, and it's all organized. I know the pieces you've picked up, but it seems like you have a mental picture of exactly what you want to do, when you want to do it, and how you want to do it. What is your preparation look like from creation to when you stand in front of a class?
Good question. Actually, I found that the harder I prepare, the less prepared it looks.
Huh.
So I prepare meticulously. On occasion, I do have notes which I just have, which I refer to make sure I haven't forgotten the key point that I want to bring out in the structure of the music.
Sort of bullets, would you say?
Bullets, yes.
Okay.
So I have a little pad that might have bullets in it, but I prepare the whole 8 weeks. I lay it out in my mind. I lay it out on paper. And then I prepare each lesson so that it runs there's enough time for discussion and feedback, which is very important to me, getting an interaction with the class. And so, yes, it is meticulously prepared. And that's why the classes seem to just end logically at the right time.
Yeah, it seems to be off the cuff, but it is seamless, which is never off the cuff. Really.
The harder I work, the more seamless it looks. That's what I found.
that's the whole effect. Anything else that you'd like to discuss for a few moments of the time we have?
Yeah.
Good.
I find the creation process is, that's me. That's my phone.
Okay.
It's inconsistent and unpredictable.
Yes.
The class creation process.
Yes.
There are times when I'll have a bunch of ideas floating around and I work them through into classes, and there are other times where I actually have no ideas for classes.
Yes.
And I worry what I'm going to do next year, and I don't want to repeat classes.
Yes.
Although when I repeat them, they're always different because I try to make them better and more.
Sure.
I take the feedback from the prior time. So what I want to leave is I'm going to keep doing this as long as I'm physically and mentally able to, and as long as I can create ideas that are valid for people to listen to.
Lovely. Just a short aside. My father taught me many things, but one of the things he told me is that you cannot be continually productive. You must allow yourself to have peaks and valleys,
Yeah.
and give yourself that grace.
Yeah, and to have a fallow period, basically.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So just thinking about the interview today, not knowing what you're going to cover, but having some idea, into my head popped 2 courses for next year, so I presented the course proposals today.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what they are.
Please.
It's actually a 16-week course, and the title is The Beethoven Symphonies, Searching for the Ideal Performance.
So you're going to do comparative performance again.
Comparative performance. I've done this class once before. The last time I did it, the title was Toscanini the greatest Beethoven symphony conductor?
Okay.
This time, I'm not going there, and I'll put together the versions I want, and I'll lay the groundwork for each one, and we'll just plow our way through the 9 symphonies.
So you're going to go through all 9.
It'll take 16 weeks.
And you're going to do, Symphony number 3, you're going to do 2 examples or 3 examples?
Probably 5.
5?
Yes.
So that may take 3 sessions.
Yeah, the first and second symphony I can get through faster. The third and the fifth require a lot more time, and so that's what I will do. I will lay out the 8 weeks.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure the third will get 3 weeks and the fifth will get 3 weeks.
Terrific.
Or 2 weeks, you know. So that's what came out. Even though it's a repeat, it'll be different enough that I feel it'll be worthwhile.
Terrific. For the OLLI newsletter, this is our first recorded interview, and I really want to thank you for all you've done for us. I will never listen to Beethoven, Haydn, Mozart, Bach again the same way. So thank you, Al.
Then I've done my job.
You have absolutely done your job, and thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. We all do.